talk about Chokin Maccabee. First time I came across this master was in Social Nagamini's book, Tales of Okinawa Masters. So what we have is a great historical master. Around the time of Sakagawa, around the same time, I think that Maccabee might be a little bit younger than Sakagawa, and for those who have not been updated, Sakagawa was born in 1782, and he died in 1862. Okay, and Sakagawa did not train under Kusanku or Takafura. There's no way he could have done that. He wasn't even born. Okay, and he wasn't even born when Kusanku came to the island. He wasn't even born when Takafura died. So that rules that out. How do we know this? By governmental records from when he changed his name. When his name was changed, there's a record stating how his name changed. When he was awarded the name, when he was honorably awarded the name of patient, of being a warrior of Okinawa, that was documented. When they document that stuff, they collect personal information. And all that personal information is how we find that out. Again, that information, you can find that out in Soshi Nagamini's book, Tales from Okinawa Masters. Okay? Remember, folklore, old folk tales, that's not good to get your information out. It's not word of mouth. What old people sit around and say, no, that's not what you listen to. That's like what we call today as hearsay. So we want to go off of official records. Okay? Soshi Nagamini even sat down and talked with the family members of the descendants of Sakagawa, and they gave them detailed information about his life, what he did, and all that's in the book. He documented that inside that book. I encourage you to read it. Now let's get back to Maccabee. Maccabee, a great master. Now, one thing that Maccabee proves is that jump kicks, aerial kicks, are a big part of it. Okinawa martial arts. It was a big part of today. So what happens is I read an article where they were saying that with Okinawa martial arts, we get all that from the southern Shaolin Temple, not the northern Shaolin Temple. Well, we know the northern Shaolin Temple does a lot of high kicks. And most people don't read about Maccabee, except for if you read some of the literature from Nagamini. Therefore, understanding that Maccabee was in the high kicks, he would jump and he would fly up through the air. So that tells me that Maccabee Maccabee studied northern Shaolin Kung Fu. Without a doubt. Okay? So, now, what if it wasn't northern Shaolin Kung Fu? Let's throw some other stuff out there. Okay? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the Korean martial art called Taekwondo. Because this is a time period before Taekwondo. So it couldn't have been Taekwondo. Taekwondo was very famous for hot kicks. And it was well documented that Okinawa and Korea were very good friends. So is it more likely being Korean than northern Shaolin? Yeah, more likely. But we don't just remove one source just because we go with the other source. So it could be one or the other, or it could be a combination of both. And that's the way we look at it. We don't know. We weren't there. And we don't have one type of records to prove that. So we just kind of, I lean more towards the Korean. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. I lean more towards Korean because I see a lot of the Shotoku. So you got Shotoku Kion, a teacher of Soshinamini. I've seen him in a white gi with a black lapel. Okay, we know the Koreans always wore black lapels with a white gi. That's like their thing. That's their traditional uniform. So we know that we exchange methods, training methods between Korea and Okinawa. Okay, from way back when, before Japan invaded Korea, we exchanged information, and then that information became part of Okinawa's training curriculum, and then our information in Korea became part of Korea's training curriculum. So with that being said, we know that that's how everything evolved. And then when we trained with when Okinawa, they exchanged information with the Philippines, Indonesia, all these other little countries, and that surrounded them. And then that's how everything evolved. So don't just look at it as the Okinawa martial arts being from China. It's not just from China. China was where the major source came from. Okay? So what happened was there was like the Chinese masters came over to Okinawa, and the Ryukyu kingdom was heavily influenced by the different Chinese influences, and Sasagawa was heavily influenced by the area of Beijing. So Understanding that is how Okinawa martial arts began. Now getting to more on Maccabee. Now Maccabee, what he did is he had that he jumped up and did that high kick. There's a footprint on the ceiling, which not many explains in his book. It was a huge fence, and Maccabee would jump over that fence without touching it. There was this old master back in those days, somebody that was that would beat a bull. He was that strong. He just beat a bull like the bull wasn't nothing. He just grabbed the bull by the horns and just slung it to the ground. This guy was an awesome martial artist. And so what happened was when he beat that bull, this guy got that reputation. This person's name was Funakoshi. They didn't give a first name. Just Funakoshi. We do know that he wasn't relation to the modern Gishin Funakoshi. We know that. We know that information. But this Funakoshi challenged Maccabee. And they did all these strength training. They did the tug of war with the bow. Each person grabbed a bow and did the tug of war to see who was the strongest. They did the back then it was like modern barbell, but it was the traditional Okinawa barbell. And they did all these strength training. They did all this. They had all these officials, all these people there. They had it was a big festival. It was a real big deal. And then for the last contest, the last one was to jump up and kick. Do a jump kick. Well, that was part of Maccabee's regular training. And Funakoshi didn't train that way. It was outside his training curriculum. So Maccabee jumped up, kicked ceiling without no problem, with ease. And then when Funakoshi tried it, he fell on his face. He tried it, but he fell on his face. And Maccabee won the challenge. And he became a legend all through Okinawa. And then later, people forgot who he was. And so so what happens is sometimes people forget who the legends are. And that's one of my things that I want to work on, is I want to search who are these legends? What are they? Where they come from? Let's find them. Let's bring them back to light. Let's introduce them back to the martial art world. Let's tell people what they did. Because for the biggest part, it's not bringing fame to them. What was their training curriculum? Let's learn that. Let's learn how they trained, because that's how they became great, is how they trained. So the reason I want to talk about Maccabee is because now I want to get into ranks and titles within the martial arts. So it's like this. Everybody wants to be a black belt. Everybody wants to be a 10th degree black belt. First, let's review the ranks. there's you got your there's 9Q. So you got 9Q, 8Q, 7Q, novice. 6Q, 5th Q, 4th Q, intermediate. 3rd Q, 2nd Q, 1st Q, advanced. I counted backwards. Okay? So you count backwards. 9, 8, 6, 7, 9, 8, I can't count, can I? 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay? So we count backwards. And what we do is we split them into 3. So now they got 3, 3, and 3. Novice, intermediate, and advanced. Now you can put a 10 on there, and that would just be a beginner. We can call it a beginner. That way we separate between novice and beginner. That way there's not 4 going on there. So we got that one as a, and then we do the same thing with the opposite way with the black belts. So you got black belt 1, 2, and 3. Okay? We're just going to call that a novice black belt, just for the sake of it. Okay? And you got those 3. And you got 4, 5, and 6. We'll call that an intermediate black belt. And then you got 7, 8, and 9. We'll call that an advanced black belt. Okay? It's not what it is, but just hear me out. And then we got the 10th degree black belt. The 10th degree black belt is like a 5-star general. We only have one 5-star general in each military branch. We should only have one 10th degree black belt in each style. So let's roll this out on how the rank system is, how it would work better. Okay, so you got the 10th degree. That's the person that's in charge. That's the head person who's in charge of that martial arts through the whole world. He's the international. He's the international chief. International director. 9th degree. Continental. So we find a continent. That guy is the only one that can be that 9th in that continent. Now I'm not saying this is the official way. I'm just throwing something out there that will just kind of helps. It will help to promote your organization. This is for organization use. This is to so these people can, when they hold these ranks like this, not so you don't have 1,000 people as a 9th degree black belt. Okay, and then your 8th degree black belt. Okay, that is your national director. They're in charge of the nation, of that nation that's within that continent. So they get to be in charge of the nation. All right, that's the 8th. Your 7th degree black belt. We can put them as regions. All right. So your 7th degree black belt can be in charge of a region. Your 6th degree black belt. Now we can do a state or a province. Now your 6th degree, that's what they're in charge of. Only one for those areas. And if they want to, maybe they can relocate. If they really want to be that, if they really want to strive that, they can relocate, or they can work by satellite. You know, we do have this thing, it's called internet. So they can still work in other areas. And there are a lot of people for a different job, for a different position in their job. They do relocate. to go and work in that area. So they relocate for that job. You can do the same thing with the martial arts. You can relocate for a better position so you can further that martial arts. You can support that martial arts. You can make it grow better. You can gain more students. So let's say, for instance, that you're a 5th degree black belt. You live in the state of Florida. But in New Mexico, in your organization, there is no black belts there. I mean, there's nobody there as a director. There's no director for New Mexico. So you can relocate to New Mexico and you can become the director for the state of New Mexico and promote your style and your organization within the state of New Mexico and help grow your organization. And remember, what I'm telling you isn't to make everything flashy and showy. I'm talking about really promoting a real martial arts, reality-based, traditional, or sport, something that works, nothing that's flashy. Okay? Martial arts, martial means combat. And then you got your 5th degree. A 5th degree can be a city. You can represent the city. You can do the city. You can do a county if you want to do a county. You can do a 5th degree as a city or county. Let's go with county. So you're doing a county, a 5th degree. 4th degree was a city. Okay. A 3rd degree, you're in charge of your dojo. So you're getting promotions from 3rd degree on up. All these different promotions. So for each rank you're going up, you're getting these new responsibilities from 3rd degree on up. All right? And then, so 3rd degree you become a chief instructor. 2nd degree you can be an instructor. 1st degree you can be an assistant instructor. So from once you get your black belt, you're getting these promotions all the way up to 10th degree black belt. So it makes, when you go into black belt, you are doing something different. You are becoming a person that is promoting your style, your organization, whatever you're doing within the martial arts. Therefore, the structure has to be there. Everything has to be set in play. Now, this systemization can go bad or good. However you want it to go, this is a system that I use because it helps. It helps to systemize and bring order and bring responsibility to my students, so they know where they stand. Okay, and just because you create a system, develop a system, you're not a 10th degree black belt just because you create it. All right. It's simple. It was, let me see, so we say Nagamini was born in 1907. Soshi Nagamini. He states when he was 45 that he received the Renshi, which is the first teaching license, that's your instructor license for the country of Japan. You cannot open a dojo without being a Renshi, which is a 6th degree black belt. Okay, so now, just because you're a 6th degree black belt don't mean you get a Renshi. But you can't be a Renshi and a 5th degree black belt. You have to be at least a 6th degree black belt. And so what happens is when you get your 6th degree black belt, then someone else has to refer you to test for the title of Renshi. So Shogun Miyagi recommended Soshu Nagamine for the title of Renshi. Therefore, so Nagamine, he created his style in 1947, around the same time that he got his Renshi, which means he was a 6-degree black belt. So in that time period, he was a 6-degree black belt when he created his style. And he still had to test and go up the ranks to get to a 10th degree. All them years, do all that stuff. So just because he created his style didn't make him a 10th degree black belt. What happens is people like to bend the rules, especially here in the United States. They watch too many kung fu movies, too many kung fu flicks. They listen to what this person says, that person says, and then that person and this person don't have no knowledge on how the martial arts really works. You have to stick to strict guidelines, because what happens is they try to make it where everybody can do it. If everybody can do it, it's not special. It's not unique. It's not authentic. It's not. You have to do it the way it was done from the beginning. You have to keep it traditional. Changing the rules is just changing it because you can't do what they did. You're making it like you gotta change it because you can't train that way. Like a big thing that was taken out of the martial arts was Hojo Undo. They took that completely out. I know so many masters that can't even kick with the tip of their toe. They can't do nothing with the tip of their toe. So you gotta pull your toes back. Yeah, try pulling your toes back with tennis shoes on, with boots on. Pull them toes back. They're not gonna pull back. You can pull your toes back when you're in dojo, but not when you're out on the street. How's that working for you? So you gotta train that. Same thing with spare hands. Spare hand strikes. They do spare hand strikes, they work good in the air. But what when you hit something? Are your fingers tough enough to take that hit? Can you strike that way? Do you know the vital points to hit? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know how to turn your hips? Do you know the balance points on somebody's body? Do you know how to attack those balance points? Do you know how to sweep them balance points? Do you know how to, would you hit them balance points just right? Do you know how to step into a front stance and take your knee into their balance point, which is in their knee, to destroy their stance as you throw that reverse punch to them? Do you know that technique? If you're an advanced student, you should know that technique. You should know how to use your stance to destroy somebody else's stances. That's why we have all them different stances. Do you know the purpose of a horse stance? Why are we going to get in a horse stance rather than a front stance? Why are we getting a back stance rather than a cat stance? Why are we getting a cat stance rather than a front stance? Why are we getting a cross stance rather than a one-leg stance or a crane stance? Why are we getting a ground position rather than a standing position? Why are we getting a high stance rather than a low stance? Why do we move forward rather than backwards? Why do we move sidewards rather than forwards or backwards? Why do we do these things? Why are we doing what we do? And these things are important in the training. If we just move and just because we say that's what the sensei says, we're not learning anything. We're just learning to do what the sensei says. Ask questions. Why do we do that? Why am I doing it this way and not that way? What's the reason behind it? What's the bunkai of that technique? What's the application of that technique? Now understand, there's many people that think bunkai is application. Bunkai is not application. Bunkai is analysis. Analysis and application, two different things. Okay, so there's things that you have to realize that are being taught that are misleading the future of karate today. Analysis and application. Let's review this. I'll tell you what they are, so you know. If your sensei's not telling you, I'm gonna tell you. That way you know the difference between the two, and you can keep them that way. All right. Analysis. Analysis is basically a combative methodology on what you're doing. It's going to show you combative skills. It's going to show you this is what you're doing in a combative situation. With the low block, this is what you're doing, boom, with a combative situation. Okay? Now, when we get into the application, different. The application of this technique. So the application can be, how is it executed? The application of it. The application is basically, how do we execute it? How do we perform it? How does it apply? How are we applying this technique when somebody comes to us? How do we apply it? Well, bunkai is a little different. Analysis is a little different. It gets into more of vital points and all that other stuff. It gets in real deep into, we can get into hitting the nerves, wrist locks. So let's take it further. Bunkai analysis can be, analysis is where we take the technique where it looks totally different, but this is how this technique works, but it doesn't look the same. Application is what you do, how to work, how it applies, but you're doing it exactly the same as you see it in the kata or how the technique flows. You don't change. So if it's a fist, it's a fist. It's double hand, it's double hand. It's a knife hand, it's a knife hand. Whereas, let's say this block. Okay. So in analysis, I can go, I can parry. I'm parrying. Analysis. Application. I'm blocking a punch coming into me. Punch comes into me, the application is unblock that. Basic. So application is intermediate. Analysis is advanced. Novice, you just learn the technique, that's all. You learn the technique, you learn how to apply it, then you learn the analysis the analysis behind it, how to hit them points, how to use them in a different way, how to take somebody down. Those are the different strategies. And, sometimes I even slip up and call bunkai application because I was taught wrong. that was my obligation, my responsibility. I had to go and relearn that. Like, for instance, I was taught one time, that with a back fist when I was at Rickmore. At the Rickmore Academy, I was taught the back fist was called an Erkenzuke. Okay, so let's review this for a minute. Okay, so a back fist is going in an arc. Back fist goes in an arc, going in like a crescent moon. All right. Zuke means thrust or punch. So in that second, Zuke would mean thrust, straightforward. So how do you get straightforward from an arc? Straightforward to an arc. That's why you got to use strike. Urchi. 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 Okay? And I have to fix that because a lot of times, even today, sometimes I'll say Erkenzuke, which is incorrect. It's an incorrect term. And sometimes we have to go back to the drawing board and we got to fix things. And we have to understand this is how the martial arts is. This is what we have to do. Within a life that I learned, I have to go back and fix it. Go back and fix it. Because it was incorrect. Now, just because I train under somebody, don't mean I look at them like everything I do is correct. Or just because my main style is Matsubiyashi, for instance, okay? Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story with Matsubiyashi. Just so with this story you can understand that I don't play favoritism. Not at all. This is one of the things I dislike about social Nakamine. Alright. So there's a guy named Gary Tipton. He was in Columbus, Ohio. He had a school. He went to Okinawa, trained, got his black belt in Okinawa under social Nakamine. Came back to Columbus, Ohio, opened up his school. And what he did is when Ansei Yushiro found out that he had a school there and it was thriving and a lot of good black belts came from there. So Yushiro visited his school and started training with him. And Yushiro wasn't his student. Okay? Gary Tipton was more Yushiro's student. Okay? Yushiro was a big deal. So a lot of people was going to Yushiro because Yushiro was from Okinawa. He was from Nagamini's dojo. He was the one that first brought Masayashi Ryu to the United States. And Yushiro was a big deal. He knew what he was doing. And so masters are saying, well, why am I traveling to Okinawa? Got this guy right here. So why don't I just train with that guy? And Yushiro wasn't about money. Wasn't that big on money. He just wanted to promote the art. Show people what it was. How does it work? So that's what Yushiro did. And so what happened was when Nagamine found out what Yushiro was doing and not sending him money, Nagamine didn't like that. So Nagamine came back to the States. Or not back, but he came to the States. And he came over with Omini. So he came here with Omini. He was, I think it's Chotoku Omini. And so should Nagamini. They came here together. Okay? So this is what happened. Nagamini gave Omini Yushiro's position and took that position from Yushiro and placed Omini on the West Coast. Well, people was already working with Yushiro, and they liked Yushiro a lot better than Omini. They tried to work with Omini, but they didn't like his methods. They didn't like what he was doing. Some people just, because they were so used to working with Yushiro. And Yushiro was more, he's been living here in the United States longer, so he can speak English better. He was more Americanized. He was more accustomed to the customs here inside the United States. All kinds of different things to factor. And he was humble. So what Yushiro did is he created something called Yushiro Ha Masabashi. And then Gary Tickton became part of that. See, Gary Tickton was a Rick Morris student. And, not Rick Morris student, but Rick Morris teacher. And then, so it went Yushiro, Rick Moore, Mike Wilson, me, and then my students. That's the lineage that it goes with the Masabayashi. And so it would go Nagamini, Yushiro, Tickton, Moore, Wilson, and then me. And that's one lineage. Okay? There's another lineage that goes through me. Because I had one of my other teachers, he went over and he trained with Nagamini. His name was Larry Stewart, pretty good martial artist. So Larry Stewart went over and trained with them. So in that lineage, it would go Nagamini, Stewart, me, then my students. Therefore, it was. It's very important to know where you come from. What is your lineage? Are you training the same way as the people in your lineage? That's why you have that lineage. You train the same way. You don't change things up. You don't go showboating. You don't. The lineage is important for that reason. So, at that point, I hope this helped you in some way, and like again, I'm open to criticism. We can work together, grow together, we can do all this stuff together. That's what we're for. Thank you.